Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode. Rolando. Tell me about Rolando in 1994.
I don't even know how old I was in 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly haven't a rec clue. I don't even know what grade I would have been in.
It's too young to
second
have any
grade.
real
Second
memories.
grade. Okay, fine. So second grade, I would have been in Mr. De Silva's class at Sacred Heart. He was a teacher who would slap the back of our heads if we got answers wrong, and call us stupid idiot.
Wow.
Yeah, he'd be like, stupid idiot if you got a question wrong.
Terrible.
I know, right? Catholic schools, man.
Oh my gosh, I was in Catholic school too. I guess then I would have been in first grade. And it was fine. I mean, I don't know. Things started really going downhill for me around fourth grade in terms of like, wow, nobody likes me. I have no friends kind of a thing.
Really? Fourth grade?
Yeah. I mean, kids get cruel faster than we think they do. At least back then, too.
Yeah, I guess it's true. I was always in the middle where I was.
You were kind of invisible, I should say.
No, not invisible, because I had moved from the Bronx to New Jersey and stuff. So, all the kids in the school had like kind of already made like relationships and friendships and stuff. So I had to like kind of form new ones, and it made me a target of isolation. But I was really quick to adapt and make friends and like kind of fit into crowds, like fit into groups and stuff.
I see. Well,
plus I was also like a defender of people.
Aw, that's sweet.
No, here we go. Don't get us started.
What happened there?
Don't get us started. No, Nicole, no.
We're getting really into, our childhoods and stuff. The point, though,
we are.
is that the 90s, the 90s were so different. It doesn't seem that far away. We have kind of memories of it, but like the 90s, man, it's only 30 or so years ago, and wow, how different it feels now.
Yeah, that's true.
Because we're going to be comparing two properties together that are only about 28 years apart. And
29?
Feel planets apart
Yeah.
in terms of at least the representation. We're talking about two adaptations of the classic popular Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles. Interview with the Vampire, the 1994 film, and this new AMC television series of Interview with the Vampire. So
AMC Plus, I think it's
AMC Plus. Okay.
Exclusive. I don't think it's.
I'm not sure. I have YouTube TV. I don't know about cable things anymore.
Oh, if it's on YouTube TV, maybe it is on AMC then.
Yeah, that's why I was like AMC, I think, but whatever.
Maybe.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Rolando.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
about unoriginality. I got a new microphone. Hopefully the quality, was good, guys. So.
I hope so too.
Yeah. So the reason I ask about 1994 in particular is, well, obviously because Interview with the Vampire came out that year. Believe it or not.
Way.
It's got to be one of the most prolific movie years of all time. And I think I've mentioned this before, but it's the same year.
I also feel like you've mentioned that all the time. The most prolific.
Yeah, this is the most prolific. Yeah. I mean, there was some
important year.
To be quite honest, though, every time like something gets rebooted or revived, it's usually from a pretty iconic year. Like very rarely will they, because then also it's like they're not going to pick a okay movie from a forgettable year.
Which I would argue is what we should be doing with remakes. We should be picking up.
We should actually be taking things that weren't that
were
great
mediocre or not that good, that had a solid concept, and then remake them.
Maybe that'll be the next phase. We keep going through all these different phases, but 1994, we definitely talked about it before. I can't remember what episode it was, but it's the same year that Pulp Fiction came out, Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, like a really prolific, big Oscar year. So when you think about 1994, you kind of think about those movies that I think have, I think they've aged well. I mean, maybe not Forrest Gump in my opinion, but for the most part, these are pretty rewatchable, enjoyable movies that, you don't have too many qualms with now. And then there's Interview with the Vampire, among other movies that came out. And I am just already dragging this movie, and I don't mean to, but at the same time, you know,
are.
I think that even like 10 or so years ago, we could have called this movie out for being like, really, guys, way to not address the homosexuality in this, because it was a big thing. Like, really? You're going to have two of the biggest stars, and you're just going to, I guess, shy away from it today? That would never happen. But in the 90s,
yeah,
it happened. Of course, actually. Of course.
I mean, Anne Rice was kind of complicit to that, though.
Well, I'm sure she wanted the paycheck, so she was like, sure, whatever you want.
So here's my fun fact about the movie.
Yes, tell me the fun fact
This is the funnest fact I think I discovered while doing research for this film. But Anne Rice, in one of the earlier drafts of the script, considered making Louis a female character, and she wanted it to be played by Cher.
That would have been a way better movie. Let's just pause and think about that.
I don't what an alternative universe that you would want.
What, like, are you kidding me? That is the biggest tease ever.
Yeah, I accidentally told Eddie that it was that they wanted her to play Lestat, which I think she would have been a better Lestat than Louis, to be quite honest.
She would have been, she would have been a better.
She would have slapped Lestat, and she'd be like, "Snap out of it."
Yeah, basically.
I mean, especially, like, you know, when, like, Lestat never dies, it's like, well, Cher never dies. So, like, we can't kill Cher.
I mean, so Cher actually also wrote a single that was supposed to be attached to the film that the producers are like, no, thank you. And
was it Do You Believe in Life After Love?
No, you know, it should have been.
What a perfect song.
I forgot what the name of the song was, but it was released eventually and stuff. And I think she even tweeted about it not that long ago. Probably when Anne Rice died.
Oh, wow.
She called it the Forgotten Vampire Ballad.
Sure.
But yeah, can you believe how wild is that? So
we missed out.
But Anne Rice completely was aware of the homosexual subtext that she wrote into her book that she just didn't think Hollywood was ready for. So she was ready to make changes.
Okay. I've never read Interview with the Vampire or any of the Vampire Chronicles. Rolando, have you?
No. Come on. That's a silly question.
Eddie, have you?
Yeah, I read Interview with the Vampire.
So then my question is it subtext in the novel, or is it, like, pretty much fully addressed?
So for what I remember, because I read this a long time ago. So I remember that you do get the sense that there is this sexual tension, as well as this affection and struggle of the affection between these two men, these two vampires. So you get the sense of there are very kind of like intimate moments in this that are not per se sexual acts, but more the way Louis may speak of Lestat at a moment. And just like the you know, that whole scene of when he first makes Louis into a vampire and they have to share a coffin together, you know. So those kind of things that made me, you know, like a little gay kid was like, "Ooh, this is interesting." But, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I always got the sense from the book that vampires were not sexually active, that they were somehow, they gave that up. They had the passion for the blood, and but they needed from each other, either from another vampire or a human sometimes, kind of an emotional connection. And that's what I sense from the book is, and it was kind of, you know, the moments where it was basically obvious, but these two vampires needing and wanting the emotional connection from each other.
So then there was never a line in the book that said, like, and then they had passionate sex all night.
No, there was never that. You know that. And I felt like it was like they couldn't. I feel like I read, like, it was a point where it was, because I feel like I at one point I was very fascinated with vampires, and so I always find like
always with the supernatural.
Yeah, so it was like I'm always interested in what lores, you know, what do they introduce when you get a new vampire book, And that's one of those things. It's like, oh, I guess they don't have sex, but they have this intensity, emotional intensity for another person, you know.
Wow. Okay, maybe I'm being too hard on the 1994 film then, because the more you were saying that, I think that maybe they did get some things right. So Eddie, you know, I want you to chime in. I mean, obviously we're talking about the media properties today, and that is what we are prioritizing. But, you know, like kind of like chime in too in terms of representation of these characters as someone who's familiar with it on that level. Because these are two very different portrayals of male relationships. The 1994 one is more, I would say, a story about friendship and companionship. And the second version, this new one, is all in out lust, just giving into your sexual desires. Okay. So, and again, you know, if any Anne Rice fans are listening, we apologize in advance. But also, you know, reach out with any comments that you might have, at least about your perception of the film and the TV show, and then, like, you know, our perception of it, because this is at least what I got. Now, Rolando already, I know, is disagreeing with me in the 1994 film.
I accept from the. I mean, I remember I got into an argument with friends, straight friends. It should be noted. Is he kidding me? He's never played with this. He wants to get his voice heard. No, so I got into an argument with straight friends about Interview with a Vampire some time back, long time ago, prior to even Anne Rice dying last year, right? And it was this point that I had made that, like, Lestat and Louis were gay, right, in the movie. Like, we never saw it, but they were a couple. Not only were they a couple, but they were raising a child together. You know
so you think that the movie actually did a good job at pretty much dancing circles around it, but never actually saying they're gay?
No, I mean, it's obvious that they never went there, right? Like, the movie would want you to believe that they are very much heterosexual, right? But it's there. Like, they were a couple. They were, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you can't. These guys were clearly had a very, very toxic relationship with each other, and then when Armand shows up, who's just giving him lovey-dovey, giving Louis lovey-dovey eyes, it's just like, come on. Played by Antonio Banderas. Oh my god!
Yeah, so I mean, 1994 too. Like, you know, Brad Pitt just coming off of Thelma and Louise, Tom Cruise. I mean, this is before Jerry Maguire, but this is obviously post Top Gun, post, like, Far and Away, Days of Thunder. So he's still, like, top action movie blockbuster guy. Antonio Banderas, I think he just made Desperado, I believe, or maybe the next year.
He was like another rising star.
Yeah, he was a rising star. I mean,
and then Christian Slater just made True Romance and Heathers and stuff. So, like, these guys are, like, the hottest straight guys, well, at least publicly straight guys in the business, all making a film together.
No shade, please.
I mean, hey, we never know what a person does in their private lives. And, you know, whatever. So, of course, I guess in order to market that movie, you know, they really had to, or at least, like, in terms of not even just marketing, but how they were going to deliver it, you know, they really had to make sure that they were pleasing to all demographics. And those guys are going to bring in women, but they're also going to bring in a lot of men. So you can understand why. I think Tom Cruise has a huge male fan base.
And Brad Pitt?
I think Brad Pitt too.
But here's the thing. A period vampire movie?
I think vampires were different in the 90s. I think post maybe Twilight and True Blood, vampires have changed. You become more of like a... no, I'm talking about now, post Twilight and all this stuff. It's become more of like this weird, like, teen fantasy genre. But before then, vampires, I think, were cool.
I don't think vampires necessarily were, like, really ever cool.
Yes, they were.
Yes, they were.
They may not be cool for you. Maybe that's not your thing. But they were cool, especially to being a little kid, picking up Interview with the Vampire and almost being like, oh, my God, I better read this when nobody's looking because people, you know, and my family, you know, like, like, I don't want my mother, like, to get her prayer group praying over me, that kind of thing. But those at that time too, she was the other books were coming out of her series. It was like, this is an 11-book series, the Vampire Chronicles, you know, and they were so popular. People were just eating them up, and people were like are you reading this book? No, no, no. I'm a book behind. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what do you think about this? And it's like, oh my God, I love this. You know, people were like going crazy over these books. And Lestat, all that, this whole world was had a moment where it was like truly like fascinating. And then the movie was coming out and people were excited. People were talking about this movie.
I think also, vampires in literature have always been more like, they were able to be more sexual and they were able to be more freer because of the way that they can be depicted in literature as opposed to media representation. Mainstream media representation, from Dracula to Interview with a Vampire, had to be a little bit tamer. So the books, it was like, oh, it's going to be crazier and juicier and like, more graphic in here. And that's kind of changed now. Now we're able to actually catch up with literature and show, the raw sexuality that now is just hand in hand with vampires. But maybe we should take a step back and describe the plot of this piece of this series a little bit. What's like I don't know. I'm trying to do this in the tightest way possible to tell the story about Louis and Lestat. Go for it.
I could do this for you. So Louis is the main character of this film series. He employs journalist Malloy to tell his story. He wants to come out to the world, in present day, as a vampire. And his story begins in Louisiana, and he talks about how he was turned into a vampire and this hot and cold relationship he has with the vampire that sired him, Lestat, and their centuries-long relationship, we can say.
Did they use the term sire in the film? I can't remember.
They didn't say it, but I guess I'm just used to that word from like other lore.
Buffy.
There
you go. Yeah, Buffy.
But yeah, so
see, vampires were cool before Twilight. Buffy.
I mean, Buffy was cool, not the vampires. Like, we had some cool vampires.
But Angel, Spike.
I hated Angel. I never.
Yeah.
I was never
Don't waste your time, Nicole. Don't waste your time.
Spike was cool up until the rape scene. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? Or attempted rape scene.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to this. So, Lestat, Louis, they have this really, really on-again, off-again relationship. And Lestat decides in order to fix this relationship, they bring upon this other new companion, a young girl named Claudia. And Claudia is kind of like a wild child.
She's a child.
Because she is a child.
She's a child.
She is a child. But part of her story is that, like, even though she physically can't age, her mind can, and she's frustrated with the fact that she's stuck in this child form. They decide to kill Lestat and run off and search for other vampires. They finally encounter a vampire clan. And Claudia is punished for the death of Lestat. That brings Louis to some form of madness and stuff. And when we come back to, not madness, but depression and stuff. But when we come back to the present.
Rage, because.
Yeah, rage.
Because he kills.
True. And when we come back to the present, though, Malloy asks Lestat to turn him into a vampire and make him his companion, and Louis is pissed off because he's just like, did you learn nothing from my story? Like, this is a warning. I'm trying to warn people about these vampires out there. Mm-hmm. And surprise, surprise, Lestat shows up and murders Malloy,
and kind of like leaves it hanging. Will Malloy be a vampire? Will he not?
Well, I guess that's true. That is the ending. Thank you.
When did you first see this movie?
I saw it in bits and pieces like throughout my whole life. I never saw it in its entirety up until recording this podcast.
Yeah, this was like on HBO or Cinemax a lot growing up, I feel like. Or like it was somewhere.
I don't know where I used to see it, but it was being bits and pieces and stuff. For me, I never wanted to see it because it looked goofy. Okay. Like the costumes and like the eccentricities of Tom Cruise's performance as Lestat.
I see, yeah.
And the hair pieces, there was just a lot that I just never wanted to. I just never was drawn to this film. So I would always, if it was on, sometimes I would watch it. I think maybe usually the parts that I would watch is like when the little girl is involved, right? Played by Kirsten Dunst.
Yes.
Because, I was growing up. something that I could kind of like relate to. Be like, okay, well, this little girl's a vampire killer. That's kind of cool, I guess.
That's the other year. That's the other time we talked about 1994 on the podcast when we did Little Women, because this same year she was in Little Women.
Kirsten Dunst was in Little Women.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What? Mm-hmm. Do I remember this?
She played Amy.
The one who dies?
No.
Who is Amy?
Amy's the one that grows up and marries the boy that Joe was in love with Joe, and then Joe.
Is she the one who falls in the water?
She's the one that burns the manuscript.
Oh yes. Okay, now I remember.
There you go.
Okay.
If you've
So
never
Kirsten Dunst
seen Little Women, we just spoiled quite a lot of things for you, and I apologize. But what were you gonna say?
2 years ago at this point. Is she? So Kirsten Dunst, that was also her year. This is
like her big debut in cinema, and what a fucking
Dunst.
debut! I mean, I'm a pretty big Kirsten Dunst fan, so like, I think that she owns this movie.
No, she's great. She's so good in this film.
She's the best part of this movie. So I just want to say, I was first introduced to this movie some point in the mid-90s by my older sister Barbara, and she gave me the context too, like all the biggest and hottest and most sexually desirable movie stars are in this movie together.
And they're all gay.
Yeah, she never said that though.
She never said that. Did she not read that? Did she?
I don't know. Maybe I was too young for her to like think of saying that to me and stuff. But this movie, I remember being but not really, but kind of traumatized by because of the death of the Kirsten Dunst character.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think that's a spoiler alert. She dies. I still think that's a pretty fucked up way to die.
It is,
and that's also because she's a child. She at least appears to be a child. Like it always rubbed me wrong. So this movie always stayed with me. Like when I watched it again, I was like, wow, I can't remember how much of this. I can't believe how much of this I recall. Like, I almost didn't need to watch it again because it had just been so present in my memory.
Really? It was that present? Because I mostly
watching
remember
it
the costumes.
Again. Yeah, no, the costumes. I mean, watching it again, though, I did find that the story is interesting. The performances are strong, but the direction was just not there for me. I think
interesting you should say that. What do you mean by that?
I think that, it's a combination of things, which is why I say the director. Like, sometimes the editing was a little off. It's like, why are we staying on this shot of a coffin being carried for like so long, or maybe that happened too fast, right? And also just kind of like certain things that we choose to focus on, and maybe it's also some bits of the writing that I didn't think worked for me. Like, I don't know. There's a scene where the statue comes to life because I guess now that Louis is a vampire, things look differently. Mm-hmm. And that, just like little things that I was like, this is just not being effective for me.
Yeah. So, and I think that's part of the problem that novels unfortunately get, like when they're adapted, right? Like things get lost in translation. When you're trying to, I don't know how long this novel is, but according to my research, like they cut out large portions of the novel,
I'm sure,
to fit it into this book, specifically Claudia and Louis traveling looking for other vampires, right? Like that whole storyline is like,
he just like kind of says it in narration and that's it. And it's so bizarre. It's such an interesting thing because in other vampire lores, like vampires are kind of amongst us everywhere, but in this one apparently there's not that many. It's just like so different from my perception of vampires too, at least in media representation. I don't know. I thought it was interesting because it's such a plot heavy film too. It's really, it was a weird balance of like, okay, this is moving too slow at times, and then other times move too fast or it didn't expand enough.
I agree with you. In retrospect, at watching this film just sitting down, it was kind of like the first couple of acts were just breathtakingly fast. Yeah. Right? Yeah, like, Louis' backstory is it's just bam. Like boom, boom. Like he turns into a vampire within 10 minutes of this film. Like opening, Yeah.
And I even thought that like we could have gotten a better introduction to like Lestat and stuff. It was like, this is too fast.
Yeah, Lestat kind of didn't get like an introduction. He just kind of just went right for it.
Yeah.
He just kind of like just dipped his teeth right into Brad Pitt's neck. Who, by the way, Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise hate each other as a result of this film.
Wow.
Like they don't get along.
Look at that. Yeah,
they will never work together again.
Performances wise, because you said, you disagreed with Kirsten Dunst being the best in this film. I feel like then maybe you think one of these two stole the show?
No.
Oh, interesting. So between the two, if I were to say, you know, because I don't think Brad Pitt was fully formed as an actor quite yet. And there was something about him that seemed a little checked out. Now, granted, his whole like Louis character is like, oh, he's so like despondent, and he's like, you know, just passing through life, even though he's like begrudgingly a vampire. But after a while, like he kind of, after a couple hundred years,
Well, it wasn't a couple of hundred years. It was literally 60 years.
Sure,
They were together. That they were together.
Oh, they were 60.
Well,
Okay,
60 years. Okay, so maybe after 50 years or something, you might
we're
change.
also coming from a couple of things here. We're coming from Louis being very depressed. Okay, in the
in the film, yeah.
In the film, he loses his wife and his kid, right? And he's depressed, and all he wants to do is die. And he's just like putting himself in situations where I just want to die. Stan takes the opportunity there, and it's like, maybe being a vampire may be a little bit better. But then he realizes, no, it's worse.
It fucking sucks.
Because I want to kill
No
every
pun
time.
intended.
I just want blood. So it's like literally, I mean, I don't know. I just think Brad Pitt did a great job of always looking like he was in pain.
Wow.
Like always looking like tortured.
Yeah.
About, like his existence was a constant torture. And now having like, I don't even know how to die as a vampire.
So
not really.
Wow.
Like,
I personally,
I can probably like walk into the sun but like the other thing too is like how do it's just like I'm a vampire but I'm also in this relationship with this other guy, and it's intense because I love and I hate him. I love and I hate him.
It's like that Katy Perry song. We're hot and we're cold. We're
love and I
yes
hate
and
him.
we're no.
Too. So
I don't know. I did not see any of that in him. I kind of got more bored than in pain.
I think you're both right on this
him.
one. And you guys want to hear? Here's another fun fact behind the scenes drama about the film.
Did he hate being on the set?
He didn't want to be in this film. He wanted to get out of the contract, but the clause for him to get out was so expensive that he just muscled through it, and as a result, he was miserable on set.
Honestly, I think that shows, and maybe for Eddie, it works positively to his portrayal of Louis. But
yeah, because he knows the character.
Yeah, like understanding all of that about Louis and how tortured this character is, I was still like, Brad, you're not giving me enough dimensions here. You're almost too miserable.
So that's so funny that you both read into what was exactly happening. It just happened to work for the one who read the book, and for you who had not, you're just like, you just look miserable. Why?
Yeah,
Smile.
but in a different way. Now, I'm going to give it to Tom Cruise. There are scenes that he just fully commits to that character. And I actually think he does a pretty good Lestat. I think we're just so used to seeing, like, we can never differentiate Tom Cruise from Tom Cruise. He's just such a big movie star that he can never disappear in a character. But motherfucker commits to his roles. He just gives it. I just feel like he always
ends up playing that macho or like the straight guy, like the really like all American guy,
anything but straight.
So, but to see him in moments where he is so flamboyant,
yes,
especially with his, with like his those outfits and stuff, and being absolutely ridiculous and so totally indifferent to and bored of how Louis is reacting to his existence. Like, oh my God, he's like, get over yourself already. Come on, you are such a killjoy.
In retrospect, yes, like when I was younger watching this film, like clearly the one I gravitated towards was Kirsten Dunst. Upon rewatching this film and sitting down and actually watching it, yes, Tom Cruise absolutely kills it. Another fun fact about this movie, when Anne Rice found out that Tom Cruise was cast in the film, she was absolutely angry. She didn't think that he could do it. Yeah. Other people that were considered early in production were John Travolta.
Sorry, that's funny.
There was another one. I forgot.
Richard Gere?
Possibly. There was like, I feel like there was like an old actor that, Julian Sands. Does that ring a bell to you? It's a British actor. No? Well, that's who Anne Rice wanted.
I know that she wrote the part of Lestat, or at least when she first wrote a screenplay, like back in the day, for it, she had this French actor, Alain Delon, in mind.
Maybe him too. Yeah, but yeah, she was absolutely livid that it was that
Which
it
is,
came
yeah,
down to Tom
Alain
Cruise.
Delon is known for being very, almost like effeminate in his manner. He's a very pretty
Really?
boy and stuff. So, like, Tom Cruise was just, that was not the career he was going for, and he has not gone for, since. Like, a good person who actually should have been in this movie at the time was probably, like, River Phoenix.
River
Like, I
Phoenix was
feel like-
supposed to be in the movie as Malloy, the journalist. He died.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
This was
But
post.
other actors that she recommended though throughout production were John Malkovich, Peter Weller, Jeremy Irons, and Alexander Godunov.
Ooh, Peter Weller would have been really good.
Peter Weller would have been an interesting choice.
Yeah.
But yeah. But unfortunately, Hollywood chose Tom Cruise. She was angry. However, when she finally saw a copy of the film, she took out a 2-page ad, I think, on Variety, and was just like apologizing for,
Oh my God.
for
She
not
was
wanting
like,
Tom
yeah.
Cruise in it.
Yeah. And she was like, oh, wow. I mean, that's the thing. He's surprisingly good in this movie.
He is. Like, I never really paid attention to his performance growing up. Watching his performance now, it's just like, oh, again, it just makes me realize, like, yeah, like, why have I been so hard on Tom Cruise? Like, I just really
Seriously.
never gave him a chance. And, when he's good, he's good.
I
The
completely
guy
agree with
commits to
that.
his roles.
He commits like no other. I mean, now it's become like, he commits to his stunts and whatnot, but he commits to making the best movie experience for his fans. So I appreciate him.
Maybe that's why he just drove Brad Pitt insane, because Brad Pitt was so miserable on set and Tom Cruise is just fine.
Yeah,
like
Brad
that.
Pitt just wanted to smoke
like
weed
that
or
Rachel
something.
Berry from Glee character being like, come on guys, we gotta give our best, guys, we have to do this, we're doing this for the fans, we're doing this for the readers. And Brad Pitt's just there miserable smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, like calm down. We gotta talk about Antonio Banderas as Armand, who also, I mean, Eddie, I don't know if you continue to read the books, but it seems like Armand was kind of like, like his, what's that term for, like, when you leave one his rebound relationship from Lestat.
You could see that as, yes.
Yeah, and Armand just definitely, was like wanting to mack it to him. Again, we're talking about it, but if you've seen these movies, these men are never openly, at least to a certain degree, affectionate with one another. It seems to be like very, dancing circles around this idea. They embrace, they're very tormented, and they engage in all these things, and the emotions are so strong and so high, and they almost get there, and then they shy away. And it's just such a tease.
There's so many points where, like, Brad Pitt's just hovering over Brad Pitt, and you're just like thinking, it's just like, just kiss. Just
Seriously,
kiss.
there's a scene with like Armand and stuff. Where I think they like grab each other's faces and they're like this close, and it's like they're about to do it, they're about to kiss, and they don't fucking do it.
Well,
It's so
I mean,
aggravating.
clearly Antonio Banderas read the script and was just like, okay, I'm giving him fuck me eyes like throughout the whole movie, because literally every time we're on a medium shot or close up of Antonio Banderas looking at Louis, Brad Pitt's character, it's always with those like come hither eyes, right? It makes it, in retrospect, Antonio Banderas would have made a fantastic Dracula.
Yeah,
like he has that, like that.
Yeah, he has
brooding
that
sexual look, and I think so. He
has that big vampire energy.
Big V E. Antonio Banderas was my favorite performance growing up in the film, outside of Kirsten Dunst, and outside of the fact that he was just so handsome, even with that ridiculous wig that he was wearing.
I loved it.
He was just so captivating on camera. He's so suave and smooth and stuff. And I actually did enjoy his performance. And like, there was this great moment because like he brought such tension between Claudette and Brad Pitt's character Louis, because like she calls him out. She's just like, you want to run off with him. You're going to abandon me to run off with him. And Louis is basically saying, like, I kind of do want to run off with him. Like, he's a man my age, I guess. You know?
Kind of sick of being a dad to you kind of a thing, yeah.
Which, that's the thing. They kind of weren't either by that point of the film. They kind of did have, like, almost a relationship. It kind of turned a little... I mean, granted, she's not... It's fucked up because, like, she's not a child. She's mentally.
No.
But she's in the body of a child, so... Yeah.
She's younger though, and she does kind of rely on him.
Well, that's because of her body, right? And that's like that's what Armand hinted to. Is just like,
and everyone wants a companion
to turn a child into a vampire because they can't protect themselves.
Yeah.
And we saw what happens. You know.
I just never understood why they didn't punish him as well. Why did they throw him in the coffin?
Who, Armand?
Louis, like when they, took Claudia for the punishment.
Because Claudia was the one who really committed the murder. I think Louis was just accessory.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he was just accessory to the fact. He didn't plan it. He was just like, fuck, I guess I had to help you. Like, what am I gonna do?
I suppose so, yeah. Okay.
I mean, he was complicit, but he wasn't. She clearly had the intent, and we know that there was a vampire there who could read minds and stuff. So, like, I'm sure he was just scanning her brain and was just like, "Oh yeah, no, she did it. This little wild child needs to go."
But wouldn't they? I mean, I don't know. I would be like, let's kill him too, because then he's gonna want to take vengeance on us. And like,
Also,
Louis
but Armand wanted to fuck him.
I guess that's why Armand. Told
Armand had affection for him. You know, he was already emotionally attracted to Louis. You know?
Yeah.
And they do end up together in the book. I mean, the movie they don't, but in the book they do. They tour Europe for quite some time, and then that Louis ends up back in America because Armand says, "I want to see where you came from. I want to see your home." So that's why they ended up back.
Mm-hmm. And
then,
he's like,
then
"Oh,
he was
right.
like,
You
and he was like,
Claudia."
Then Louis was like, "Wait a minute! I just realized, I can't be with you anymore because I can't get over my emotional torment."
Yeah, oh jeez, fucking Louis. And what was Louis with like constantly burning places? Like that was his go-to. He's like, I'm done with this place. I'm gonna burn it.
Burn it, yeah.
Yeah, it's that's kind of my Dungeons and Dragons character.
Yeah,
kind
totally.
of MO. Like it's just like, so I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just like, yeah, no, you're done. You want to move on, burning it to the ground.
Yeah.
I think if I ever join for a campaign, my character is going to be Louis. I'm just going to be brooding the whole time, and anytime I just want out, I'll definitely will burn something to the ground.
I had a character that played a little bit of Louis Lestat. I played him very, very flamboyantly, very, very homosexually.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Good times, man. Good times.
Good
Dungeons and
times.
Dragons allows you to explore these things and stuff. And like I said, I've been calling out without knowing the full facts behind it, right? I only know a lot of this stuff, the homosexuality, in retrospect now because of my research for this thing. I kind of took a deep dive because of the show. But I was saying this to my friends like years ago that like it's just like, no, Lestat and Louis are clearly like Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. They're gay in this film. They're raising a child together for like the second act.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It just sucks because it's so clear, but it's so frustrating at the same time because it's like, why is no one addressing the elephant in the room?
Yeah, but isn't
because
that...
it.
Go ahead.
I think what also has to be an element that has to kind of come into surface is that they're not human. They're vampires. True, right? And they see themselves as above and superior and beyond structures and labels and framework that they had to shed when they became vampires. So I do guess that there are, like, for them, it's not just about the not, at least for this movie, and the book gives the sense of that it's not about the opposite sex or the same sex or the gender. It's about the person that I seem to have an emotional connection with.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we were talking about this again, I think 2 weeks ago when we did. That's right. Let the right one in. It's like, okay, there's certain things that in every vampire lore is there. They can't be in the sun.
Right.
You have to invite them in. Maybe most other vampire places or media properties, they're sexual beings. And like sometimes it's a metaphor for sexuality, sometimes it's just down and out sexuality. So this is one of the first ones that I think I've encountered where, at least in the 1994 version of it, it was like they were asexual. And that's so unlike vampires for me.
They were asexual with each other because we did see Brad Pitt getting it on with an older lady.
There you go.
But
they are sexual.
No, but okay. But you also but it's all part of. They were playing a game. This is all part of playing with their food.
I guess it's true.
Because Lestat kind of like almost making out with her porter, her assistant, that guy that was taking care of the dogs. Whatever. So that young man, so that he ends up killing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's about playing with your food. It's about seduction. It's about the game. I
It is a funny scene. I just want to point out where she's just like, I could be your grandmother.
yeah. So it's
Yeah.
Like, no, you're gonna be my dinner girl.
so it's like it's and the thing with this too is they are so powerful. They're like apex predator, and to make it interesting, it seems that they have to have this whole ritual and fun with what they're going to consume.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, it's definitely different than how this new Interview with the Vampire, though, is portraying them, because if this one is claiming to be more faithful to the Anne Rice source material, then I think they are maybe being faithful but taking a lot of liberties.
Which one? The new
with the
AMC series?
AMC series, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so AMC series, yes. So I'm just gonna I want to jump right into it. I'm gonna start off and say this: critics love the fuck out of this show, but if you do your research, a lot of quote unquote Anne Rice purists are furious, and lo and behold, a lot of the anger comes at having homosexuality and a black character front and center. Wow, who would have guessed? I thought we've been over this, but here we are yet again. Just wanted to throw that out there.
I didn't see any of that, so this is news to me.
I started because I was like, I started doing research into the show, just like, yo, what are people saying about this? And because I will say this right off the bat, I think I found myself very enamored with the show. I think it's like a fantastic show, and I think these changes that they made to the plot really kind of enrich the story in a way that I wasn't expecting, right? So, yeah. Do you want to get into the major differences?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the major difference between these two properties is in the new version. Big difference number one is that it's the interview is taking place in contemporary times. However, one of the more fascinating parts that they did was like the original interview that, like, let's say the one that we know from like, let's say the movie that happened when young reporter gets attacked by Lestat. That all still happened. This is now almost 50 years later. Louis reaches out to Malloy to kind of do this interview all over again with a kind of a clear head now that he's had time to reflect on his being. And now Malloy's character isn't this like kind of young, inept reporter who's going to ask basic questions. No, now he's a very hardened, cynical, bitter reporter. Yeah, he's very, very well seasoned. Yeah, and as a result...
And facing his mortality.
You're right. Yes, he's also facing his mortality. I think that just all of a sudden gives brand new context to the conversation that these two are having. That already brightened up the show. Next big difference is that Louis, it doesn't take place in the antebellum South, right? It takes place now in
New Orleans
1910s, the teens.
Like during like ragtime.
Yes, right before Prohibition and during the Depression era.
No, Depression is 1930s.
Oh wait, no, not what happened?
This is like ragtime.
It is ragtime.
This is like industrialism.
It does carry through into that's what I'm saying. Into the Depression.
Yeah, they sleep through the Roaring '20s almost.
Is that what happened?
Well,
okay.
Doesn't this take place in 1910 though?
That's where it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It carries through the at least where we've left off. The Depression had already we've hit the Depression era. But yeah.
How many did you watch?
The full series. We're only missing the episode that's remaining to be released.
All right. Can I just put something into context too?
Yeah, go ahead.
That this isn't a reboot, but a revival.
According to Eddie, he claims that this is a revival. But go on.
This is because we have to see the first movie as the interview, because the book is written as like Louis giving this interview to the boy, as he refers to him, the boy, the reporter, right? And so it is Louis telling his story and all that he knows. So we can't get Lestat's backstory or origin because it was never shared to Louis. But now we're coming. We have this experience now. This like decades later, he gets the same report and sits him down, and so let's do this again. Let's do this again. And he's like, and there's a point where he's like, you see physically, he decides to throw away the old interview, erase it from his computer, and he's saying we're starting from a fresh point here.
So to Eddie's point, it's like you could take the film Interview with a Vampire and say that was the first version, right? That first interview. And now 50 years later, here we are for a new version, right? You could take that interpretation. Not obviously not the exact same characters because we have a black Louis, but you could take that idea basically. And I think it kind of does work out well, which is kind of why the story kind of gets enriched a little to the new version where Louis is black. And because of this, we get a lot of identity politics really seeping into this narrative storytelling device that I kind of think kind of enriches the story, because I think one of the big plot devices that we see is just like, and I think what the reporter said is just like, you fuck around with a black man who turned into a vampire, you're gonna find out what happens. And that's kind of one of these like recurring themes here, that like this character, he is black and he is in Louisiana and he is looked down upon by all these white people, but suddenly he gets all this literal power, physical power. He is now an apex predator, but because of the racial politics of the South, he's still looked down upon, right? Despite the fact that he has all this immense power behind him.
And we also have to add too that he's gay.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's gay.
That is he's a gay man.
We're not walking around it. He's just absolutely gay. And so it's a black queer character that we're watching on screen, dealing with this identity as a vampire and this really, really toxic relationship with Lestat, the vampire that turned him.
Yeah.
And that's more or less the setup, right? We're seeing the interview unfold and we're getting the flashbacks of what happened.
Mm-hmm. Whereas in the film, it feels really, really rushed, Louis' backstory, and then all of a sudden Tom Cruise comes without really an introduction and stuff. I mean, that's pretty much that is the whole first episode. Mm-hmm. You know, what was Louis' life like before he got turned, and what was his relationship? How did he and Lestat meet? You know, so this one is taking its time more, and they're very different characters than at least portrayed so far from what I've seen in the film. Obviously, you know, you said everything about Louis, but even Lestat, I feel like he's got all the same characteristics in the sense where he's still flamboyant. He's still like, he's charming as fuck. And he has like this aura about him, but it's a different type than the way that Tom Cruise did it. And of course it's a different actor choosing to do things differently, but I feel like Tom Cruise was more theatrical about it. This actor's
this guy's theatrical?
Subtle. I think this guy's more subtle.
Because you haven't seen the second episode, the third episode.
I haven't seen the third episode. No, I only saw the first two.
He is so. I think Eric Reed, I think is his name. Let me just Sam Reed. Sam Reed has this panache as Lestat that's a little different from Tom Cruise. I will agree, but I think he is. I think he's very captivating on screen in a way that like I just wasn't. He oozes sex in a way that like, because he's not the type of guy that I'm like sexually attracted to usually, right? Like the chiseled chin, like the long golden hair, but he kind of just oozes it.
He has a magnetism.
Yeah, he does have like a magnetism that like kind of does capture well. But I think the other thing that I like about it is just like what we see is from him that Tom Cruise kind of only toyed around with is this burning passion that he has for Louis, right? In all of Sam Reed's performances with Louis, it's absolute magnetism, like almost like animalistic lust that he has for this character. And it shows, I think, so well in a way that like, you know, Tom Cruise didn't do, right? So that's the read that I get. Like Sam Lestat hunted Louis, played by Jacob Anderson, who maybe our listeners might know him more so as the leader of the Unsullied on Game of Thrones. He hunted him down for that romance, right? It's like when you're at a bar and like you see that one person that you really like, and you're gonna do everything you can to like get close to them and kind of make your move.
He was pursued.
Yeah, and stuff
Mhm.
like and
Yeah, so I guess
that's that's a lot of theme here. That's like hunting.
for sure. This would be the time of the podcast where then I tell you that I actually did not feel the chemistry between the two actors.
Oh,
And that really actually made it hard for me to connect with the show. I actually didn't also particularly enjoy their performances. I didn't think they weren't doing it for me. I think Louis, now that I think about it, this is a hard character for me. I think to see someone convey convincingly, and maybe it's either like it works for me or it doesn't. And unfortunately, in both cases, it just hasn't really worked for me. I don't think I like either portrayal of Louis.
Interesting.
And I don't know. I think I prefer the Tom Cruise one, but I think my biggest gripe was definitely like I felt a complete lack of chemistry between these two men. And this is a film that is not only taking like her subtext, but they're just full on making it text. They're like, we're gonna embrace the shit out of this and make it. I'm like, ooh, exciting. And if you don't have that, for me, it didn't have the chemistry. It's like none of it can work if they don't have that foundation. So I found it really hard to connect with. And all the changes they made to the Louis character, updating him, making him more of like this, like a pimp who thinks he has to be a pimp because that's how he has to survive. It's kind of like this front that he's put on, right, in order to hide who he really is. But then it's also like made a division between him and his family to the point where his brother commits suicide and the mother cruelly blames him for it.
Right.
It's like all of these things that I'm like, oh wow, this works for me story-wise. Why am I like not really getting emotionally connected to it? And at the end of the day, for me, this was definitely like if the two leads, aren't carrying the piece, then it's just not going to work for you.
Interesting.
I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I'm not going to tell you how you should feel about their performances or something, but I don't think I can be convinced that this is like good acting.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I do disagree with you on that one. I think Jacob and Sam really I think Jacob more so. I think I prefer Jacob's performance as Louis Dupont de Luc. I think he just has such a bravado on screen that like really does show.
I think I know what it is.
I've been enjoying.
I think it's the scenes with Malloy too that it begins with that, and from the start I was like, oh, I don't like this Louis. So like I just could not connect with him. I love Malloy. I think Malloy's great.
I think Malloy is fantastic. I would agree with you on that one. Malloy is top notch. I would agree with you. I don't like that version of Louis. That kind of like, I don't know. It's a superiority complex Louis. But the flashback Louis, which is the majority of the Louis that we get, I think is like I think it is some of my favorite.
Yeah, I think he's better in the flashbacks, but I don't. But then once Lestat gets added to it, it's like that's the thing. Like contemporary Louis is cold, and he's just like he's supposed to evoke so many emotions that's hard as an actor to get to. Like, okay, you have to evoke superiority, coldness, but dominance, all this stuff. It's like, gee, what a dilemma as an actor if I was given that role. But then also like. But that's the thing, like, that's what I at least feel like he's trying to convey, and none of those things worked for me. I'm like, okay, this actor is clearly acting right now.
Yeah, I think so. What I read on he's just trying to just disconnect almost is more so my read for what he's supposed to be doing. And the problem is
such a fine line.
He's but the story is so. The thing is, like, with his story, the feeling. That's the thing. I think maybe that's what I capture. As much as I don't necessarily like the contemporary version of Louis, what I do reading that performance is still that like burning lust and passion that he does still have for Lestat that he hates himself for. I actually have found myself just enjoying the show because I think one of my favorite things about the show is just like we're really seeing just a very, very toxic relationship and a man who hates himself, just absolutely hates himself for being in this situation, but knowing that he doesn't want to get out either because that's the thing. Like, I think the relationship is kind of you're seeing an abusive relationship just unfolding and stuff, and I think it's so I found it so compelling. Like I found it so maybe it's also because like I don't know how many queer stories go into that threshold of like that toxic abusive relationship also, right? That I was kind of really compelled to watch it, right? Because we spoke about this a while back where some of the problems with remakes or reboots is like we'll have like black characters, but we're not going to explore what does that mean for that character or in that time period that we're exploring. Here we get to see it unfold, and how does that relate to like his vampirism here? It was just like I thought it was just fascinating storytelling, his queer identity, like what does it mean to be a black queer man in America? Now you throw the fact that like you're in a fucking fucked up toxic relationship, and it's just like I just they had layers that I found myself just like compelled. I'm just like this was I loved it. I
mean it sucks because I agree with you, but at the end of the day, you know, a good story and a good idea needs to be executed well, and I don't know if I can agree in the sense where I'm like this was well executed, in the sense where performances and also like the film, you know, the not the filmmaking, the television making or whatever, you know, it was fine. I think that the story is really what's working here. But I also need to be convinced that this is a story that I need to by the actors. So I don't know. It's just, and that's the thing. Like, I don't want to shit on this parade because I see what it's doing, you know. And I actually I hear you, and I think that's the voice that you know we should be shining here. But I really want to tap in then to the Anne Rice people that you said that are upset because you're saying that they're upset because the subtext became text and that they changed Louis to a black man.
Those are the two major complaints I have seen on the reviews, like the user generated reviews, like either on Rotten Tomato or Google. When you Google reviews for this, you know how Google can also aggregate reviews. A lot of those complaints stem from this idea that this accusation that making the character's homosexuality, the creators of the show didn't understand that this was not a romantic relationship, which I disagree because we know as Anne Rice was writing the screenplay for the original film, she was afraid of the homosexuality kind of being so front and center that that Hollywood wouldn't make the movie. So I think right there they're wrong.
Well, you know, this was shelved for so long, 2 decades. This was shelved in the sense of like they had the rights to make the movie and it was always talked about, and this project was always put in the back burner and it was shelved, and finally it was created after like almost 2 decades.
Was Anne Rice involved at all before she died?
Yeah.
Initially.
Yeah. Initially.
I wonder how much she saw.
I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm talking about the original movie.
Oh yeah, no.
I'm talking about the original movie.
Yeah,
so in the sense of that, and a sense of her like having a hand on that and the original movie too.
No, but she was she actually gets a writing credit also.
And her son is in it.
For the new show.
For the new show, yeah.
Her son is
it.
Also involved in it.
In the new one?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. You see, so
Christopher Rice.
Yeah, Christopher Rice.
Oh, I thought that was her husband. So, yeah, so that's complaint number one that I get. That I think making it text is fine, right? If you're gonna do some compelling storytelling or explore the idea of what does that mean to like make it so front and center. We have a character in Louis who was, even though like he found this passionate love with Lestat, he was still very much ashamed for like the first few episodes of his nature, not just being the vampire, but also being gay, right? And I think we, as queer people, sometimes forget that part of our experience about coming out, right? Like after we're out, it's not all flowers and dandelions, right? Like it is still like you still do have to struggle with that feeling of being different and being other and like being looked at and judged.
Especially if you have people constantly reminding you
that you're being different.
Are other.
Yeah.
Which is the case here too. So you have this character, Louis, being constantly reminded that he is less than he is because of his color of his skin and because of his sexuality. You know, constantly kind of reminded. And even though he is smarter than everybody in the room, and because he is powerful businessman. He is always reminded that he is the boy, you know, when
Yeah.
he's with his poker white buddies.
Which is the other context that Anne Ricean fans haven't liked, which was turning this into a Black experience story, right? They felt, oh, why do that? Why insert your woke politics into it? And yes, on a lesser show, I would agree, making him Black would have just been hitting off a check mark. But I think they're exploring the racial politics in it in a smart way that I don't think it feels like it was just like done for just a check mark, right? To be different, to be like exciting. I think they're doing it to similar to Watchmen. You know how Watchmen explored racial politics? I think this is just doing a very similar job of like kind of
right. But
exploring
Watchmen
that.
was a continuation. They didn't like go back and tell the Watchmen story. They continued it 30 years from now. This is going back and retelling.
That's fine.
living.
I'm talking about though in terms of the exploration of the idea.
Absolutely.
Like, right? Like you're just not doing it for like the sensationalism of it. They're doing it, it seems, from a very, very from a place of sincerity.
Absolutely.
Of kind of exploring. And like that's why I'm just like, yeah, no, it's just like these people are clearly showing their bigoted side.
Well, so it's interesting because when I went into this episode, I was like, oh, I can't believe this Interview with the Vampire movie in the 90s just like completely ignored this like gay text. But then, you know, I've been informed by Eddie, who read the book, that it actually was never quite text, it was subtext. So now hearing that people are upset with this new show because they made the subtext text, I can see why they're upset, because they're like, well, you're taking away what was special about the novel, was that it wasn't about sex. It was about the connection. And like, as far as what I saw so far, I don't know, maybe you guys saw more, but like, oh, there was a lot of sex. I mean, the first time that Lestat and Louis have a connection, they're like floating while fucking.
They're in the threesome and like, yeah.
So it's like, I could see that. That's actually, in a way, that's kind of valid. Because it's like, it's more than sex. It's different than sex. And you can connect without sex. And that's kind of what it seems. Now, again, I can't really go on with my my quote unquote defense of them because I've not read the book. Now, making Louis a Black character, I don't have a problem with. But what I think they might be coming from, and they're just saying it terribly because, like, don't tell people to fuck off with their woke politics. That's a stupid fucking thing to say. Mm-hmm. But what I think they're coming with is, like, if you wanted to tell the story, then make a different movie. Why are you going to take a story that we all love and want to see portrayed and now changing it for your own whims and creating a whole story? This is an interesting story, but why are you calling it Interview with the Vampire? Because when I hear Interview with the Vampire, I expect to see what I read, 1790s, Louis, I guess a white guy or whatever. So it's just like, it's interesting because I see both sides of the situation. Mm-hmm. And that's also something that we've talked about, where it's like, if this was called something else, maybe I would have liked it more. But they're calling it Child's Play, or they're calling it, Interview with the Vampire. And because of that, it's like, actually, just be your own thing. Why are you presenting yourself as a revival or a reboot?
Probably, but it's a better story.
Yeah,
it's such a better story when it's
in your opinion.
In my opinion.
And
in my opinion,
but there's many people out there who feel different.
Yeah, because it deals with rage. What it is to have rage, what it is constantly to be containing your rage.
Of course.
So I
and
just
it's
feel
a
like,
really interesting story.
It's
a different story.
But it's not. That's the thing, because Louis' character from both films, what we see is him also struggling with this idea of being a cold-blooded killer. They haven't diverged from that much.
Yeah,
they just introduced a little bit of race politics into it, of identity politics.
That is some spice.
We're not. So here's the thing. There's a difference if we're talking major changes that really, really diverge the story from like what it is. They're not. Introducing different ideas is not the same as like if we.
Well, wait a minute. I've never read the book.
Well,
so we can't say how
But
how
we
much
can even
it
compare
is.
the two movies, right?
Yeah.
Even comparing the movie to the show.
They're completely different.
But you can. So if they had made, let's say they decided to go the route of what Anne Rice wanted originally. They're going to make They're going to make Louis a woman. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now this is an abusive relationship we're seeing between a man and a woman, which already is going to change the narrative a lot. Now when she is when she has Claudette, it's going to also now change the dynamics.
Claudia?
I'm sorry, Claudia.
I love the name Claudette, though.
They're going to change the dynamics of
course.
This relationship as a result. See, that's kind of now introducing much more different changes that you would have to more so address in like the storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Where here we're just kind of so. The other thing is, it's just like I might also make the argument that the Anne Rice fans who are arguing, it's just like, why are we putting homosexuality in the book? Like, why are you making him gay? Maybe they just didn't get it or didn't want to get it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I'm just going off of you here, right? So I'm not even necessarily calling back to anyone. And I've never read the books, obviously. So it's like, I guess I'm just trying to like,
you're playing devil's advocate.
Play devil's advocate for sure.
Which in the show, makes sense for the show, right?
But of course, yeah, we have to at the end of the day. But it's interesting because even with that example you brought of a woman, they are kind of doing that because you said that this character, now being a man of power and stuff, but still looked down on in like the South in this country, changes all the repercussions and I guess the way that the people react to the character. So then actually it becomes more than that. Like the story then evolves and takes a different shape because of this. Now, of course, I think it is interesting. And I do think that the story is super like interesting. So it's like I'm both. I'm like, oh, this is an interesting way to turn into the vampire, but it also could have been his own thing, So I'm kind of like sitting on the fence here myself.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you that maybe it could have been its own thing, right? Like I'm not.
Yeah.
And
that's what so many remakes and reboots and revivals end up being, I would say, like, oh, why did they call it this? It could have been its own thing.
It does. But I guess for me, like maybe because it took it. So let's say since you and I haven't read the book, we have to just compare the original film to the show. It took the base plot of the movie and just said, it's just like, why are we skirting around the fact that they're gay? Let's just make them gay front and center. Yeah. And that's really what it did. Introduce some identity politics, sure, but the gay portion, which is what I have been arguing for years, it's just like why they're a gay couple raising a child. That's what happens here in the show. We are very much seeing a domesticated life of a vampire, of two vampires and a child. And there's actually episode 4 or 5, which is the one that introduces Claudia. I think it's episode 4 because we just watched episode 5. Is from the point of view of Claudia through her journals, and it's written in a way that kind of feels, I don't want to say comical, but it is kind of funny. It's like macabre.
How old is Claudia in this one?
In this version, she is at 14. She's 14 years old in this version of the.
What a bummer.
How so? Why? You wanted to be older?
No, I mean, isn't she like 5 in the original?
In the book.
In the novel. No,
in the novel, she's 5. And
in the movie, I think
she's like 8?
11, I think. No, I think she's 11. 10 or 11.
10 or 11?
Kirsten Dunst? I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Well, she's not a teenager.
She's not a teenager. No, but I think making her a teenager kind of does complicate slightly the character because you're in that wild throes of puberty.
Yeah. I mean, this one kind of reminds me of Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
When in the original film, it's like, oh wow, the my child that died that now gets revived, and all of a sudden it's this evil thing that wants to kill me. It went from being a 2-year-old, which is tricky, to reading about that is horrifying, but watching in film didn't necessarily work. When they're like, well, we can't make that work, so now we have to change it to a 12-year-old girl.
Right.
And in the remake, it worked really, really well.
Yeah, something similar like that.
Yeah, it is something similar like that. But I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen Claudia in those episodes, but I mean, when it worked so well with Kirsten Dunst, you just got to top her. And I wonder if this girl is able to top her.
Definitely does give her own.
I would agree.
To it,
making it her own. That's what she's got to do.
I mean, but it is the chaoticness of two men. I mean, there's certain scenes that are just hysterical because it's like two men raising this child and the chaos that she brings to their household and how they react to it and how frustrated they could become and stuff, and especially Lestat that's like rolls his eyes and it's like, you wanted this,
It's
I did this for you.
Yeah. I actually, I don't. We could do a quick lightning round. Actually, we haven't done one of those in a while.
Let's do it.
Can we just quickly mention?
Yeah, before we go ahead.
Too, is another element here that's very much different from when I remember the book. And the original movie was in here. Vampires have a variety of different powers. There are different powers displayed. There's like almost time stopping, pyrokinesis.
You could being able to mind control a whole arm, like platoon.
Yeah. Telepathy, mind control, flight, like super flight, like really like going into the stratosphere, kind of flying, not just levitating. So it's just quite interesting to see that too, because there's nothing like having your boyfriend take you all the way up there and then dropping you from the atmosphere.
Yeah, that happened in both. I think when Lestat and Louis first connect and stuff, they always levitate.
They did levitate. Kind of like... Then the levitation's also used in the fight. That's kind of vicious. Way.
Yeah, that fight was rough.
It's rough, but we're like seeing like a very, very toxic, abusive relationship unfold. Giving it the queer perspective, I think it works for me because I mentioned this before. You don't often see that on screen. That what an abusive relationship looks like for same-sex couples. Right. So I'm not, and it's not by any means glamorizing it, right? Which is the fear.
No, there was nothing about that.
Yeah.
Felt.
So that would be my thing. But I guess my thing before we go into the lightning round is like, when I heard about Interview for a Vampire being done by AMC, I rolled my eyes. And then when I came to watching it, I found myself just so enthralled by everything they were doing. And I just kind of, we basically binged everything up until what hasn't been released just yet, which is like the final episode of the season.
Yeah, wow. So that's what you've been doing the last couple days.
Yeah, like those. So basically, I've been just working hard and then like ending my evenings with watching some Interview with a Vampire, and it's been
pleasant.
It's been great. I've been just telling anyone who chooses to listen, it's just like, yo, check out this show. It's fucking wild, and stuff. And it's yeah. I appreciate how gay it is, and I'm okay with that, and I don't mind that it's not. I don't care that it's not.
And I'm
subtext.
okay with that.
Like, it doesn't have to be subtext. It's fine. We can say it out loud. It's 2022. We should be saying it out loud.
Of course.
Right? Because isn't that what we argued? What I said about the last vampire movie that we just covered? Left the Right One In. When you told me that the character, the vampires are sexless, it's just like, wow, we could have really introduced a entire trans allegory here and really told a compelling story, but we didn't do that. At least this one decided, just like, yeah, no, we're going to go gay. And it's just like, great. Go gayer. Yeah. Go gayer. Those are my closing thoughts before we get into
the lightning round.
All right.
Nice.
So, Nicole, do you want to run it or do you want me to?
I want you to run it because you're the one who wants to do the lightning round. So I want you to go in the order you want to choose.
All right. So let's go. We're going to go with Claudia first.
There's no question. It's Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst. Eddie?
Kirsten Dunst. She brings the chaos.
That's so funny. All right, fine. I agree. Kirsten Dunst. Yeah, for me as well.
Truly.
I was not to put down our new girl.
Yeah, the new one.
But but Kirsten Dunst is just like
she owned it. I mean, so
totally
good.
Did. Totally did. Let's go with Malloy.
Oh, the new one, Eric Bogosian. Yes. I liked him better than Christian Slater. Sorry,
I would agree. Slater. Eric Bogosian is way better than Christian Slater.
See you later.
Ooh. That's good. Eddie?
Same.
Eric Bogosian. All right. Lestat the Lion Court.
I have to go with Tom Cruise. I mean, just committing to this role. And this was back when Tom Cruise actually gave a shit about acting. So I got to give it to 90s Tom Cruise.
We just saw Top Gun Maverick.
He gives a shit about stunts and being in action movies. But does he act? Fine. Not that much.
It's fair. Eddie?
Sam Reed.
You're going with Sam Reed.
And I give it that. He brings out the oh my God, I can almost be seduced by him, even though he's not my type. And he terrifies me. He really does. He terrifies me.
I agree. So I agree with both of you, and I'm going to be the tiebreaker here, but I'm actually going to go with Tom Cruise. It's like upon rewatching it, it's such a great performance that Sam Reed is doing. I love him on the show, but if I had to compare and pick a favorite, Tom Cruise will win that one out. Now let's go to Louis Dupont Dulac.
God, can I say neither?
You can. I think that's absolutely fair.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a hard one. I think I might have to listen to your arguments before I pick one.
Okay, fine. Eddie?
The new one.
Jacob Anderson.
Jacob Anderson. I like it. And I guess because it's given me different elements, more dimension to this character that they added to it. So I'm for it.
Okay. I'm gonna pick Cher because of what could have been, but never was.
That's my answer. That's for sure. I'm Louis Dupont
No, I'm going Jacob Anderson also. I think he's having way more. He's doing way more with the role that Brad Pitt, as you guys have both saw, was kind of just phoning it in, and we know why. He didn't want to play the part, so yeah. I'm going with Jacob Anderson. I'm going with Cher first. What could have been
forever,
and then
forever Cher. Lovers forever. That's your song.
Yes, I was actually going to play it, but I closed the screen already. But guys, have you guys seen Interview with a Vampire on either AMC or the film from 1994? Let us know your thoughts. Do you agree with us? Disagree? Was it too gay for you? Was it not gay enough? Let us know. Hit us up on Instagram. Our handle is Remix Reboots Revivals. We're also on Facebook at Facebook/Remix Reboots Revivals. You can send us an email because we do love reading fan mail. Our email is remixrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. You can check out all of our episodes on our website at remixrebootsrevivals.com. And we also have a hotline that you guys can call in and leave a voicemail. We just might play it on the air. Nicole, what is that number?
862-248-2326. That's 862-248-2326.
Yes, Cher. Bring it. And yeah, that is it. Sorry we missed you guys if you stayed here. Sorry last week we didn't show up, but
it was
kind of been busy, and it turns out our microphone wasn't working. So
I hope we'll see you next week. I might not be here next week. We'll figure that out soon. But if I don't see you, I will see you guys in 2 weeks. So until next time, stay unoriginal.